I know what you're thinking. Oat flour brownies, are they actually good? Yes, they are. You're just gonna grab some gluten-free oats, just some regular GF oats, throw everything in a blender in 5 minutes, and you have the most chocolatey, fudgiest brownies ever. And bonus, they're naturally gluten-free. So let's do it. The first thing we're gonna do is make our oat flour, and I have 3/4 of a cup, which is 78 grams of gluten-free rolled oats. Now, if you don't have a powerful blender like this, or you wanna use regular oat flour, you can do this in a bowl too. You'll just blend everything together in a bowl. So you wanna blend it for about 30 to 45 seconds. You want it to be nice and powdery. That's why I like using a high-speed blender for this. And then to this, I'm gonna add the rest of the dry ingredients, which is a 1/2 cup of unsweetened cocoa powder, which is 50 grams, and then a 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, which is 100 grams. And if you would like to use coconut sugar or reduce the amount of sugar, that works too. And then a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Now we're ready to add all the liquid ingredients. I have a 1/2 cup of melted butter, which is 113 grams. Now, if you'd like to do this as a dairy-free recipe, I've also done melted coconut oil in here as well, or any type of oil that you'd like. And then a 1/2 cup of peanut butter, which is 129 grams. So if you are like anti-peanut butter, which why, but if you are, you cannot taste the peanut butter in this recipe. I add it to give it an extra fudgy texture, because oat flour has a tendency to have a cakier texture because it just absorbs a lot of liquid. So the peanut butter helps with the fudginess. And then the other thing that helps with the fudginess is I have a 1/4 cup of honey, which is 85 grams. Now this, the same as the sugar, if you want to use an alternative here, you can. You could use pure maple syrup, will work as well. And then 2 eggs. Now, I get a lot of questions about people asking about egg replacers, and you can do that in this recipe, but I will say, since there's no gluten, and oat flour does have a tendency to have a looser crumb just because there's nothing binding it together, brownies will be a little bit more crumbly if you're using an egg replacer. 2 tablespoons of water, and then a teaspoon of vanilla extract, and we're just gonna combine that all together. When I mix it, I stop about halfway through and just make sure everything's incorporated, and then you could finish mixing it. And since we're using a blender, I'm just gonna use a spoon and work the chocolate chips in here. You need a cup total, which is 170 grams, but I'm just pouring 3/4 of them in here and stirring them in. And then once I spread the batter in the pan, I'll put some more chocolate chips on top. To bake them, I have an 8-inch metal baking pan. I really like using metal pans for brownies because it heats up faster, which gives it those nice crisp edges around the perimeter of it, and then you have like the gooey, fudgy middles. If you use a glass pan, I mean, you can use a glass pan. I find that glass pans take a little longer to bake, and they just heat a little bit slower, so you might have a tendency for more of a cakey brownie, which oat flour has a tendency to be a little bit more cakier, so we wanna do everything we can to increase that fudginess. So once you have it in the pan, then just kind of spread it evenly. Before I put them in our oven, sprinkle some more chocolate on top. I like to do this with brownies because then as it bakes, it sinks down slightly, so you just have all the chocolate dispersed throughout. The ones that are in the batter have a tendency to sink down a little further, so we're just getting it at all angles here. Okay, this is going to go in a 350 oven for about 20 to 25 minutes. You want to make sure you don't overbake these. So the edges will be slightly puffed, and then the middle, when you put a toothpick in, it should not come out clean. It should still come out with a few moist crumbs. You wanna kind of slightly underbake these to really hone in on that fudgy texture. I am so excited to dig into these bad boys. Oh my God, they are so good. This is like your gluten-free party trick. make these brownies, serve them, and then have everyone guess what they're made out of. No one will say oat flour. If you don't want to do this as a blender recipe, go to the website. I have the bowl method too, and you could just use pre-made oat flour. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.